Hey Aiden, what's up? It's Lee here. First of all, I want to say I love your videos. I watch your videos all the time. I think you have a lot of good points in them. Um, Second of all, to respond to your newest video that you just put up, um, as to first of all whether I would ever want to forget that I was ever a female ever. That's a really hard one for me to answer because I was actually married for about 7 years, and in that 7-year process I had a son. So to say that, that part of my life would be completely forgotten and, you know, I can't do it. Because I had at least one good thing come out of a very shitty marriage. And I'm realizing actually over time, like, as I'm transitioning, which I'm only about 10 months into things, but I'm realizing that that I actually like my feminine side, even though it is very minute. There are certain things that I like that are considered very feminine. But I think the biggest thing for me was that I always identified more with my masculine side, and no one would ever see my masculine side because, society looks at you and imposes that the gender that they see and what they saw was female, but what I identified more with was my male side, if that makes any sense. So I would never ever want to forget that, and there's some physical stuff that I like more than the masculine. So that's part one. Second of all, would I ever out myself? I actually just outed myself at work, and I work in the healthcare field, and the more people I talk to, the more I'm realizing that they're not trans knowledgeable, and it bugs the shit out of me. Mostly because, sorry, there's a fly. First of all, because one of the earliest things that I remember reading about as far as like trans rights and trans anything was a friend of a friend. Yeah, I know, a friend of a friend, but a friend of a friend who ended up was having chest pain and went to like a Care Now or something like that. It was like an urgent care center, and they found out that while he was there, he was having a heart attack. And instead of like calling an ambulance or doing anything that would help him, they actually sent him on his way. So he was in the parking lot of whatever urgent care. It wasn't Care Now, I don't think, but it was one of the urgent care centers, having a heart attack, and they wouldn't do anything for him because he was trans. And it bugged me because, first of all, that's just plain out wrong. But second of all, it was because, these are healthcare professionals who pretty much took some sort of a something to say that they were going to work for the care and welfare of everybody, and they didn't do it. So, and while I was in school, that was another annoying thing because I was trained as a medical assistant, and while I was in there, we had to make up like fake diagnoses, and the one thing that everybody kept using was, oh, I'm here and da-da-da, oh, and I have a sex change, and it was just kind of thrown off the bat, like, it was like this, it was like everybody tried to come up to the weirdest diagnosis humanly possible, and I hadn't started transitioning yet, but it was very much on my mind, and I had, like, my appointment already set up to go get my tea started. And everybody was like, oh, the weirdest thing that we could possibly think of is a sex change. And I'm sitting there going, why is that so bizarre? So I realized how, like, naive in a way a lot of people are within the healthcare field who are having to deal with, people who are transitioning. So, and the other night at work, there's a bunch of nurses sitting around, and we had a patient who was going to be admitted to our floor, and I know this is a long story to get to our point, but it's a really good story for, people to hear, I think. So we had somebody who was down in the ER, and the story that was traveling about this patient was that she, said she was a female, but she kept asking the tech for a urinal, and if you've ever seen a hospital urinal, they are not female plumbing friendly at all. So, and they're like, oh yeah, we gave her a female, a male urinal, and she used it. And so it was like, well, and they kept going around, oh, is she transsexual? Actually never came up. Hermaphrodite did. And, I don't think people within the healthcare field really realize that there is a difference between a transsexual, a hermaphrodite, and a cross-dresser. I don't think they really realize that. So, I was actually talking to one of the nurses I've gotten kind of sort of close with, that I work with, and I came out to her. But there were a couple factors that went into my coming out. First of all, she was a social worker before she went into nursing school, so she had some idea of the different genders and gender variances, and understood that there is a spectrum. First, and that was one thing that I don't think I would come out to anybody who wasn't somewhat, who didn't seem in some way open-minded, whether they have been within a, sort of a professional, that professional field, or, whether they would have to have something like that to me, because to start at bare bones, which I've actually done with a couple people, because, Chaz Bono was out, and everybody was asking about Chaz Bono, and of course, here I am with all this knowledge, and, I'm like, well, this is a good time, and, I threw all the information out there. I didn't out myself at that time, but it was actually very tempting, just because some of the shit that was said about him. So, so I would, and I think I'd be more, I think it'd be easier for me to come out to a female than would a male. So somebody with with some social service background, probably, and more than likely I would prefer coming out to a female than a male, unless I'm in a safe enough space, and that male is completely bashing on somebody who's trans, and I think I would come out. But I'd have to know that, he wouldn't turn on me, and start, sorry, there's something popping up on my screen. Okay, there we go. And, I would have to know that he wouldn't turn right around and start pummeling the shit out of me. So, and I think the other important thing for me would be is that person, like the knowledge that person is not going to go around to everybody and their brother and start telling them that I'm trans. As long as I could come out to that one person and not have them out me to everybody else, I think that would be another important thing. But that's something I really do consider, when I do come out to people, is that they are not going to go and spread it all over, because as kind of good as that would be, that could start a whole amount of stigma and about me, and especially because people who don't know me may get the word, and they may already have like some preconceived notion of me, and that's kind of, as I said in one of my videos, I said, that's kind of the ace in the hole that I carry with me, and I think that just about every trans person carries with them, as far as us being proponents of trans rights, just by that simple fact alone of coming out, because we have this ability to, kind of get, into places, and, it's not something we have to come out with. It's kind of like coming out with your gender identity. It's not necessary until it's necessary, but I see it as something where I'm, I get to know people, and if that person starts bashing on somebody, I am in a good place to say, you know what, I'm trans too. Why, you have no problem with me. Why do you have a problem with them? I think I kind of touched on everything you said, and I know that was actually kind of a long video for a response, and I also know I'm talking like a mile a minute, but I kind of had a lot to say because I just did this at work, and it was actually kind of freeing experience, because it really allowed me to align myself, because my ex is a male, and and because people look at me and see a male, I kind of have to split my words up and kind of make myself into two people, which is really actually kind of annoying. But now that I came out to this one person at work, it's kind of really allowing me to be myself and touch on things that I wasn't really exactly able to touch on before. such as pretty much everybody I work with. It says it's a serious section. I know that's kind of, you know, maybe TMI, but it was something that I could really identify with, but, you know, and really, you know, say something about because I had one, but they wouldn't, but as a male, you know, but them looking and seeing just a male, you know, they wouldn't really care what I had to say about it because, you know, as far as they're concerned, my ex had the cesarean section and not me. So, you know, it's just kind of liberating to have that ability to really speak on both sides. But I actually came out like the other day, and then I had like 2 days off of work, so God only knows what I'm gonna face when I go in today. But hopefully it'll be a good experience. I'm really hoping it'll be. But like I said, I know there was a lot to answer your question, but hopefully that was helpful. Anyway, man, take care of yourself, and I'll see you around YouTube.